Hey everybody, Nick here for Fancy Sloth Studios, and this is a proposal for how the inevitable skills mod for Fallout 4 should possibly work. Now there's a reason I preface that with possibly, and that's basically just because obviously people are going to disagree. If you don't think skills should be in the game at all, then obviously the video is not for you. Like, you've already been okay with this system and you're not going to use a mod that adds skills in the first place. This is more for people who are like, I really miss the skill system and think it's an essential part of Fallout. It's for all of those people to argue with me about how I'm wrong about how the skill system should be implemented if a mod comes along to do it. Now, the reason I think it's important for basically a consensus to be reached before the creation kit comes out is, well, yeah, that's what I think, is that a consensus should be, reached before people start making a bunch of different skill mods. How WMX was Weapons Mod Expanded, and that was the default weapon mods mod. And already there are 3 or 4 weapons mods on the Nexus, and like, that's bad. And I want there to only be one skill mod. I don't want it to be mine. I just want there to be a consensus on what everybody thinks the skill mod should be. So here is my proposal. Most of the special stats will have 3 skills. Now, some of these can be dropped, and some of them can be moved around, and the details of which can change. But again, this is mostly just to make a framework for possible skill additions to the game. Also, these skills will basically be replacing several perks. So, as an example, Iron Fist immediately just getting replaced with Unarmed, which would free up its skill slot, or its perk slot. Because I don't know much about modding, but I know that if Bethesda purposely made this a beautiful perk chart, it's also probably going to annoyingly limit how many perks we can have to 70. 70 base perks, that is. Of course, there can be ranks in whatever perks are modded into the game, but I feel like it's probably going to be difficult to add more than 70 perks. So the skill system is also a good thing to have in place simply because it also means we can replace the perks with something more useful. Now, in strength, the first one is, of course, unarmed. The way that weapon skills are going to work is very simple. Plus 1% damage per point in the skill, up to 100. And since all weapon skills have a bonus, my base instinct is to just at 25, 50, 75, and 100 give you whatever that bonus was. Now, normally skills wouldn't do things like that, but since it is replacing the perk and allowing something more useful to be put in, that might be the best way to get around that. Now, we could just remove the thresholds and keep the perk as is, but I feel like that would significantly reduce the advantage of said perk, since it loses its, since Paralyzing Palm, the last rank of Iron Fist, inherently comes with a 20% damage bonus. Taking that away from the perk reduces its viability as a perk. So, tying in the threshold ability seems like the best way to deal with weapon skills. Now, under strength, we also have melee, which does the same thing for big leagues, but also includes basher, kind of to get rid of basher as a perk, because level 8 for doubling your bash damage, which already isn't going to do nearly as much as a melee weapon, seems ridiculous. Level 8 strength, that is. Not to mention the fact that you had to be level 26 to double that. Like, that is a perk that does seem like a waste of space, so I feel like rolling it into big leagues isn't the worst idea. And then the third one for strength is big guns. Same principle, plus 1% damage per skill point, and gaining the things at the threshold. Next, we have perception. Now, the first is lockpick, because it's obvious, but since there aren't 5 different tiers of lockpick anymore, we would basically get to master at 75, and then 100 would give you the never breaking your lockpicks ability. In other words, you can cap at 75 and not care about it, but if we do skill points like they've worked in previous Fallouts, if your perception falls under a certain threshold, then you would lose some of that lockpicking, and that wouldn't be good for you. The next is rifles, because while I would like to split ballistic and energy weapons, the game is set up not to do that. It is set up for rifles, automatic weapons, and pistols. So it makes sense to just keep with that, unfortunately, even though that doesn't really fit the Fallout weapons split like it used to. So rifleman would do what you expected, plus 1% damage, and 5 for the threshold abilities, or 4 of the threshold abilities, that is. So 25, 50, 75, and 100, giving you the appropriate things. The third for perception is something that I dropped before making this video. It was the skill was called tracking. It could have easily been called survival or something like that. And it was going to take awareness, Vans, and some other miscellaneous perks, but that's exactly what made me drop it, is it was a bunch of miscellaneous perks that didn't really belong under a thing. Although I still propose that awareness and Vans get tied together, because Vans is absolutely worthless, but is similar enough to awareness that I can see them being tied together. Now, the actual third rank in perception is explosives. This was going to go into endurance, but in basically every Fallout game, explosives have been perception, and to keep along that vein, and since I lost my third perception skill, demolition expert goes under perception as explosives and does exactly what you would expect it to do. Plus 1% damage per skill point, and 25, 50, 75, and 100 gain the special abilities of demolition expert. That moves us on to endurance, which only has 2 now. The first is smithing, which gives you armor and blacksmith. The reason crafting perks are good as skills is because that means you have a lot more variance in where you can unlock certain weapon and armor mods. So blacksmith, of course, only has 3 ranks, and that's mostly because blacksmith is terrible, because melee weapons are terrible and don't have any weapon mods. Obviously they have some weapon mods. I'm using hyperbole to make a point. So this would probably be used in conjunction with a mod that adds weapon mods, like one of the many that adds weapon mods, but so that there could be a lot more. And with a skill that basically gives you 20 good thresholds, every 5 points can unlock different, skill ranks. So, it's good to have these as skills, and also working these two together, they have a very similar theme of literal smithing, so they get smithing. Now, the second endurance perk is probably going to be the more contentious one. I don't think many people are going to agree with it, and that is a proposal for armoring. Now, what armoring would do is it would roll toughness, rad resistance, and refractor together in a very particular way. My proposal is that for every skill point, there is a plus 1% bonus to whatever your natural bonus to these is. Not natural, but like armor included. So if you have armor that gives you 25 damage resistance, 25 rad resistance, and 25 energy resistance, and you had 100 in armor, you would have 50 damage, energy, and rad resistance, and appropriately percentage scaling for the rest of it. Why include this? Well, because that would free up toughness, rad resistant, and refractor, which gives you 3 more perks to, put out however you want to. But also because these are kind of worthless. 50 rad resistance or damage resistance isn't a lot, because it's not damage reduction, it is damage resistance. And damage resistance, no matter how high it scales, always has a limit to how much it does anyway. So if you're the kind of person who's going to use Mark V ballistic weave and a ballistic weave hat and purposely use an outfit that has armor on it as well, well, then you're already going to have a ridiculous amount of armor, and taking armoring to its maximum extent isn't going to do much. But if you're the kind of person who's only going to use like Mark II ballistic weave for story purposes, like you're like, oh no, my guy's not going to be overpowered like that, then armoring is like a way to subtly increase something without overly increasing it, and again gets rid of 3 perks that could easily be 1 perk like I'm proposing. The reason I think that's contentious is doubling an armor bonus at the end of it. It could easily work a different way, like plus at the end 50 damage, rad, and energy resistance flat for having armoring, or it could just not be a perk or a skill at all. Both of those are possibilities that I think of very openly. I think it's one of my weaker skill proposals, but I leave it in there because it's an idea. Now, again, endurance only has 2 because of some shuffling, but charisma has 3. And the 3 are barter, which would basically whatever plus 10 charisma and the second level of Cap Collector give you, 100 barter would give you. So you can double the charisma bonus with this, but I mean, you can already get maximum barter bonus, I think, pretty easily, because you can easily get up to like 16 charisma in the base game with things. And if you're really committed, you could get up all the way to, I want to say 17 charisma in the base game if you got like sharp stuff for all of your things, and then another however much Cap Collector 2 gives you. So barter would just do that as well, but slightly smaller. And at 100, it would give you the top tier Cap Collector perk of everybody has 500 extra caps. The second is speech, which my notes here basically just say At 100, it would have the effect of 3 points of charisma. Like, whatever, like, if you have 7 charisma and 100 speech, you would basically have 10 charisma for charisma checks. And charisma checks do not always automatically succeed at 10, so that's fine. It doesn't actually give you charisma. That should be noted. It just makes skill checks easier as if you had 3 extra points of charisma. It also would give you local leader at 25 and 50. And inspirational at 50, 75, and 100. And that's why it's only 3 points and not something like 5 points, like I think it should be, because it gives you those 2 extra things. And also, again, clears up 2 perk slots to be used for perks we add in, potentially, if this is even possible. The next is intelligence, and I think it's kind of be obvious which ones we're going to take. Gun Nut is going to do its own thing. It's going to do what basically Armorer did, but for Gun Nut. Science, which is going to go back to what Science used to be, which is combining Hacker and Science, which does make it one of the more useful skills, because Science is an actual crafting perk, and Hacker isn't, but Hacker, of course, is only going to go up to 75 anyway, and 100 is not being locked out of terminals when terminals already don't permanently lock. So making it more useful like that is totally fine in my opinion, and also Science was always 2 things anyway. So Science becoming its own crafting skill, again, totally fine, even if you roll in Hacker, I think. And the last one is Medic, which does exactly what you would expect. At 100, it has every bonus you would expect at 100, but up until then, it's +1 per thing on health and Radaway. And I wouldn't necessarily suggest it, but I would also consider rolling Chemist in with it. Because 1, Medic becoming a crafting perk, since you need Chemist for crafting some of the things, is a good idea. And also, you just do it +2% for the length of chems, and that would work totally fine. That wasn't in the original proposal. I just thought of it because it kind of makes sense. Again, the whole thing is up for debate, though, because this is literally just a proposal for a theoretical mod that would take place as the basic skill mod. But whatever. Anyway, and the last is Agility, which has small guns, exactly what you expect, but for small guns with the thresholds at 25, you know, all that stuff. Automatic weapons, Commando, same thing. And Sneak, which would roll Stealth and Pickpocket together, because that is what Fallout usually did. And by Fallout, I mean the 3D Fallouts, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas rolled Sneak and Pickpocket together, so we can do it too. Same thresholds for this and this. There's a lot of thresholds in this. My basic thing is the thresholds are fine. You could do it like the perk I accidentally skipped over in Charisma. Sorry, we're gonna go back to Charisma. Charisma was supposed to have Intimidation in it. Now, Intimidation was going to roll Animal Friend, Wasteland Whisperer, and Intimidation together, and basically it would go at 10, you unlock Animal Friend. At 20, you unlock Wasteland Whisperer. At 30, you unlock Intimidation. At 40, you unlock rank 2 of Animal Friend. 50 is rank 2 of Wasteland Whisperer. 60 is rank 2 of Intimidation. 70, 80, 90. And then at 100, I don't know if there actually would be something for 100, but up until then, Intimidation rank or Intimidation skill points would increase the chance that the initial thing, pacifying somebody, would work. So yeah, because it is, as it seems, nothing really scales how well Intimidation works. Like you can see I'm level 642. This is because this is the test thing where I'm like, what happens if you put things just ridiculously high? And having like even 200 charisma doesn't seem to increase the chance that Intimidation works. So that's another reason to have it as a skill. I'm really sorry I skipped that, because now the video is going to be all out of order. But basically that's how I think Stealth should work, or Sneak, whatever I named it, is it would combine Stealth with at whatever rank it is. Like it would alternate. Since there's 5 of these ranks and 4 of these, you could have it 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, etc. Obviously working up to 100% better at sneaking at 100 sneak, and also 100% better at pickpocketing at 100 sneak. So that's my skill proposal, or how skills should be implemented into the game if we have a mod that does it. I haven't found a mod, and the YouTube search system is only bringing up a bunch of people talking about there's not going to be mods in Fallout 4, which are like 3 months old. So obviously that doesn't help. Anyway, I don't know if anybody's going to agree with this or even watch it to agree with it, but I think it's a decent system. A decent system. Obviously it could use some work, and that's why I'm putting it into a video, so a bunch of people can comment under it and be all like, this isn't going to work. And that's fine. That's the point. But anyway, this has been Fancy Sloth Nick. If you like the video, why not like and subscribe? And definitely comment, because commenting would tell me if people agree or disagree with the idea and why they disagree or agree. But whatever you decide to do remember to stay fancy, sloths.